Cinema 5D at IBC 2019 is brought to you by B&H, the professional source for all your video needs. CVP, the leading specialist in creative cine, video and photo solutions. Gudson, capture the world. SERP, better films. And Fujinon, ultimate optical performance.
Hi, this is Nino from Cinema 5D. We're here at IBC 2019 at Adamus with Jeremy again. How are you?
Good, mate. How are you?
Very well. Well, it's been 5 months since NAB.
Yes.
At the time, we talked about, where ProRes RAW is going.
Yes.
And now, in the meantime, a lot of stuff has happened. You have announced more camera support.
Yes.
So, what's happening with ProRes RAW?
Yeah, well, it's on quite a few levels. You'll see us talking about Pro Video, which really includes broadcast, the traditional kind of market that we would all understand in the industry. And then obviously there's the social media side of a lot more video content. And then there's the entertainment, we call it entertainment, which is, cinema TV, that's drama, etc., all the episodic TV that we watch so much of. And the way we think about it is the photography and phone world are leveling themselves up using our products. That's what we're trying to educate them on. And therefore, we're enabling a bunch of cameras in that space. So the S1H is the most recent with a HDMI RAW output to us and doing 5.9K, they call it, but I just call it 6K. And I was talking to the Panasonic guys and they're like, but it is 5.9, Jeremy. And I'm like, but 4K isn't 4K either. And they're like, oh yeah,
The UHD, yeah.
That's right,
yeah.
right? It's 3840. So they've got 6K coming out of that, which is really exciting for customers to get the cinematic look. And that's a photography camera. So there's that. There's the Z6 and 7 from Nikon that's obviously been out in the world for a while as a camera, but enabling the RAW is coming. Oh, it would definitely be before the end of before the selling season, like the Black Friday kind of time, where customers can expect that. And that enabling is really getting us in the hands of new people as a RAW format. And then obviously there's the updates to what was 10 cameras supported day one from ProRes RAW launch with Shogun and Sumo support. And now those are evolving with some pretty exciting cameras coming out, like the FX9 from Sony, which is the Mini Venice, so they're using all that.
Or the Maxi FS7.
Yeah, the Maxi FS7, that's right. And all those cameras, even the FS7 is still an amazing camera. I mean, I'm really looking forward to what the second-hand market looks like for those because I'm going to get one most definitely.
Yeah, I'm worried that I have two, and they just dropped in price a lot.
Yeah, but I'd say keep using them, right? Because they're really nice cameras. But all these main players, the really high-tech kind of imaging companies, the Canons, the Panasonics, the Sonys and the Nikons, as well as the Fujis and the Olympuses, they're all coming really heavy with what I think is the right solution for customers, which is a RAW workflow where the creativity of the actual user is the number one priority, and they are really able to get a lot out of their camera for not much money. And that's important. I mean, we were just discussing off camera the phones. A lot of customers use our Shinobi with a phone to see HDR. When you've got log coming out of like a Filmic Pro or a Mavic type of camera app, they can do log. But you can't see that in all its glory on the phone as well as you can on some of our high quality screens. So the RAW evolution is driving screen technology because we now got better pixels to work with, and there's more in our hands to manipulate the pixel to give you a good image. And then the high end's evolving, and the cinema guys are still living in their cinema world, right, with the ARRI RAW and the higher end stuff. And we're not interested in that. That's a very small percentage of the market, but we are interested in Tier 2 and Tier 3 entertainment productions, which I think will be using the FX9 and are using the EVA or the VeriCam style for half their work, and then they're putting an S1H or a DSLR or mirrorless right next to that camera. Because it's RAW, they can manipulate it after so that they match in the post workflow. So we're very excited for the new cameras as well as the new software that's supporting ProRes RAW every day. There's more and more companies getting the license from Apple in software. and Avid just announced their support in Media Composer, which I really like Media Composer. It is the word of video, and it's good to see them kind of keeping pace with updating and beating other companies which you might expect supported earlier, like an Adobe, for example.
Yeah.
But I don't think they'll have a choice now, other than to support the format that is now becoming quite popular with.
Well, they will have to support anything, I guess,
Yeah,
which
that's
is relevant in the market. So
That's right.
in order to stay relevant as an NLE.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like camera formats, they'll have to support, Sony's 16-bit X, whatever they call it, format is supported in those.
So how do you you're able to record the full 16-bit of the FX9? Because when we talked to Sony, a week ago, they were like, we're talking to Adamus, but we're not sure if there's a recorder already in the market from them that is actually capable of doing it.
Yeah, so that's why the important step was at WWDC, which we haven't spoken since then. And there was a bit of confusion around where the 8K ProRes RAW files came from for the Mac Pro launch.
Okay.
And I was sitting in the front row because I was part of that team that recorded those 8K ProRes RAW files. And obviously they were focused on their computer a bit more than they were on where the files came from in that presentation. But behind that, we had a press release approved by Apple that we have an 8K module or an 8K, we call it master control unit, for the back of the Neons.
Okay.
Right? Now that goes to 8K P60 RAW. Now that can do the 16-bit. And that obviously it's a higher end product. People who understand what 16-bit is probably are more in the film end, because it is a pretty heavy workflow, even for today's computers. And we'll have to do it in that product because of the data rates of this.
Okay, so you can't use a Shogun 7 to record 16-bit RAW.
But no, you can't. But we may very well be able to work with Sony on a 12-bit or a 14-bit solution, which will be better than a 10-bit solution. So
well, they said it's up to 16-bit,
Yeah.
so hopefully it can do less as well.
that's right, and that's what I'd be looking for for an affordable workflow, and then you can step into a higher cost workflow and enable that and I think that's a good solution for customers, because you don't always want to have to work in 16-bit.
So how much would you set, if you want to record 16-bit RAW from an FX9,
Yeah.
because a lot of people are asking this now, of course.
Yeah.
How much would set you that Neon solution back?
Yeah, so the good thing about the Neon is that there's it's a modular system. So it's basically a Ninja on the back, and you can put SDI module, etc. But you have to change that whole unit to go up the data rate, but the 4K monitor is still relevant for even an 8K or a 6K input, right? So the good thing is they can use their Neon that they buy now in whatever size, and that I'm looking at that unit to probably be around the $5,000 mark.
Okay.
Is where it's looking like it'll fall. We haven't announced the price yet, just because we're still mid-development, and it's high data rates. Plus the disk support is early. We've got U.2, which is backwards compatible with SATA, so we don't want a customer to not be able to use a disk in the older products, but they want to be able to get the speed from the newer ones. And how much is that going to cost? Well, we're still working with SanDisk and Western Digital on what that looks like. But yeah, it won't be 10. It won't be 2. So yeah, it's probably around that $5,000.
It was interesting to see Sony completely losing interest in doing their own RAW recorders, because in the old days, like we F5, F55,
Yep.
and people realized that, you can get something else with a monitor for less. So,
Yeah, and a deck, right? I think people miss the deck quite a lot. I was a VCR guy, and a DV, the best thing about DV tape is you could play it.
Yeah.
And you could have a little player and what was a little player? Your camera. You just took your camera with you, hit play, and you could play it into a TV. And so I'm a DV boy, like 25 megabits a second. ProRes to me and the Ninja is just the next evolution of the DV workflow. And I truly believe that a standard format that you don't have to screw around with, this one's at this bit rate, this one's 10-bit, this one's 8-bit. It's just a nightmare to work. So one format that you can trust. And that's why I like the ProRes to ProRes RAW ecosystem, because you can choose what you want. You can go LT if you're doing quick turnarounds, but that works seamlessly with a RAW workflow on the timeline in the editing app. So I really do believe in one format. That's why Sony have had to kind of give that up, because customers go, well, I can use this with my Fuji or I can use it with my FX9. So that's a versatile product. And that's what we're going for.
Okay, let's move on to the Shogun 7 update
Yes,
that you
yes,
announced.
yes.
So I heard that by firmware update, you're basically doubling the amount of nits that it has now. How is that? How is that working?
Yeah, so we knew that we thought that we could get to 3,000 nits. Actually, we can get to higher than that, but it's quite bright. And to process the image accurately gets more difficult because you're pushing the LEDs harder. Mm-hmm. So the difference is you've got direct backlight now.
So it was 1,500 before.
1,500 nits before, and we were obviously used to that with the Shogun, but it was a 1,500 nit from an edge backlight. So that means it's on the edge at the top of the screen and sometimes down the other edge, and depending on the screen, and ours has both in the Inferno, and then it kind of reflects through the LCD. But at the bottom of the screen, it's not going to be quite as bright as at the top, and you've only got one control. So what the zone screens allow you to do is you've put LEDs directly behind the screen and you shine it through, which means you can turn up the power on each of those and get it brighter. But you have to analyze the image on the way in real time from the camera, or if you're playing back from the disc, and then turn on the sunspot in the top corner. So that zone needs to be at 100% power, and then the bottom zone might be at 0, and you can actually turn them off.
To actually have that HDR, otherwise just everything would be too bright.
That's right, that's correct. And so what we did was put in the transistors and, the resistors to crank up the power to those LEDs, but we didn't know whether it would look any good at the beginning, so we didn't want to release it with that. So since release, we've been testing, and 3,000 nits is a nice balance between super bright outside, which I definitely don't recommend putting on 3,000 nits. And we're giving away sunglasses here, the Shogun 7 3,000 nit sunglasses, because if you do go to 3,000 at Rec 709, my God, it's super bright. It's like looking into that LED like on your screen, which you don't want to do, obviously. What we recommend is that the 3,000 nit is only used for the 15 stop HDR from RAW or log, and that gives you that nice representation of those sensors. And the interesting part is the screens have finally caught up to the sensors, so you can actually see all of what you're actually capturing in dynamic range from those cool sensors that are coming out in all those cameras.
A while ago, you also announced a multicam switcher capability in this one.
Yes.
I think that firmware update hasn't been out yet.
No, and we apologise to customers who thought it was shipping day one. The asynchronous side has been a little bit harder than we imagined, but it's working here. It's in beta form. It will ship next month, October. I'm very pleased to say that the Sumo, which is people have been waiting for about a year now for that, and to all those Sumo customers, that is shipping this month. So in a couple of weeks you'll see that as a free firmware update, as well as it's showing here at the show, and you can use it. And we're calling it Touch and Switch, which is it's a different way to do multicam, and it's quite a powerful product at HD P60 4 streams recording and 1 program stream. We've learned a lot about it's not as easy as it looks, old switching, but once you solve it in in our video computer, we can do anything because we control it all, as you guys know, which is why we can make sure that we've got the right amount of processing, and HD 60 times 5 streams is very possible inside the Shogun architecture.
And that will come to the Shogun as well quite
free.
soon,
Yep.
for free. And the update for the 3,000 nits?
It's available now. Download it. Download it and update your Shogun 7. If you bought your Shogun 7, from the beginning, it's been out for a couple of months now, then you get it for free.
Shogun Inferno?
Shogun Inferno, no updates there. It's an older platform. It's been a great product for us. 5 years in the market now, 4.5 years in the market with lots of new updates, RAW recording. It got ProRes RAW, right in the middle of its life. And we're just at the end of squeezing more out of that product. And I think it's appropriate that, customers understand that to get the future proofing, you need to go to the next platform.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy.
No problem.
Thanks for watching, and stay tuned to Cinema 5D for a lot more from IBC 2019, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.